So we were very, okay. Um, so we had an opportunity through the support of Blue Cross Blue Shield and Health Power here to really initiate our project. Emily, I don't know, was that journey map going up as well too to share that with everyone? Okay. Um, so you know, we had this wonderful opportunity with Blue Cross Blue Shield and Health Power to be a grantee to really kick off our project that focuses on system and environmental change in the farm to early child care learning center movements, right? More specifically, we kind of aim to improve access to healthy food for low-income children and children of color by helping immigrant women-owned in-home daycare provider access food reimbursement through federal nutrition assistance program called the Children and Adult Food Program, or CACFP. And as you can see, just based off our journey map here, one thing that I really love about the journey map, and one thing that I mentioned to, you know, the graphic artist and as well to our program officer is that it's a story, it's a story cloth, right? And very much like in the Hmong community, you see a lot of pandao, that this is actually our Blue Cross Blue Shield Health Power pandao is our story map here. It's our story cloth as well. And it clearly states, you know, the kind of the title of this is planting the seed here. And that goes along with the saying in the Hmong community that, you know, what they would say is, so the period that if you're planning for 1 year, you would plant a seed. So if you plant for 5 years, you would plant a tree. But if you plan for a long time, for longevity, for eternity here, then you teach the people. And this is where our project comes in. It's about planting the seed so that that would ignite where we actually start planning and planting these thoughts about system change and how do we accomplish that is through planting this seed, through teaching the people about the obstacle that they actually go through. So how this all started is very much like, you know, what HAFA had participated previously in what we call as our Redirect program that provides, you know, weekly boxes to low-income food insecure families. And out of that, that really sparked this project that we have where we would team up with daycare providers who would receive a weekly CACA box while they work with them to enroll into the CACFP program, or the Child and Adult Food Care Program here. And the proposed project support HAFA's mission as a goal to ensure that low-income refugees and children of color have access to fresh, healthy produce that contribute to their overall mental and also physical health and general welfare. And also opening up an additional revenue stream for immigrant daycare owners to purchase healthy food for their children. But at the same time, while HAFA works primarily with Hmong farmers, this will also provide our farmers an additional source of income or alternative market to grow fresh produce, thereby ensuring that sales contributions to a sustainable livelihood for our Hmong farmers. So there are three things that we have to focus on, as I mentioned here. One, because we are a farming organization here, we focus on securing market opportunity for farmers so that they can sustain their farm business operations, right? Two, this is about increasing access to for fresh locally grown produce here to in-home daycare providers here, that they may use the produce and in return use those as meals, create meals here for the children, right? And this really came out about, you know, what we've learned over the course of the year is that if we were to introduce children to eating healthy from the beginning here, that more likely in the future here, that they'll plan and continue to consume fresh, healthy produce. And in the long run here, that would also minimize here potential chronic illnesses in the future as well. And then last but not least, it's about to really support these providers here and to look at opportunities here provided by USDA around the CACFP program and how, you know, providers can enroll themselves in this program and really utilize the program to support them in reimbursements, right? Or reimbursing them into the meals that they purchase as well to prepare for the children as well. But while everything here, and according to, you know, our journey map here, that this program kind of started in the time of the pandemic, which is really difficult as well, right? What we thought that, during the pandemic, it impacted everybody here. But for the most part, providers is someone they're so critical because they provide care for the children so that these parents can actually go out and work and really support the families here. But needless to say that we learned a lot that over the course of years that they too were having impacted. While people were losing jobs, children transitioned here from in-person to distant learning here, that many children were pulled out and they were impacted. And so we're all constantly being challenged here at a number of levels to say, okay, how do we work with this? And of course, the challenges that we encounter is one, the pandemic. So first and foremost, let me back up that first and foremost, working with this, that we actually have 14 Hmong providers that we work with, primarily all in St. Paul, that we've been working with them and didn't realize that the impact of the pandemic had on them. But in having a conversation with them, we found out that, wow, many of them were impacted. They, the number of children that they're watching dropped from 14 to about 7 for some. Some other providers actually went out of business because they lost the children's, or it was so hard to manage it because in the Hmong community here, that sometimes we live in multi-generational families, that the risk was so high to bring children in, knowing that they have actually parents in the household as well too. The other thing was, talk about equity, like, well, we have all this going is, well, how do we change, how do we communicate with the providers as well too? That many of the providers we work with, they're not very tech savvy. So it was really hard to contact them, right? We were sending information here, but it was really difficult. We connected them via phone. We wanted to visit them in person here, but because COVID and social distancing, that really pushed us back and did not allow us to have this opportunity to really connect with them face to face and collect stories. But needless to say that we were able to connect them via phone here, and we learned so many things from them, right? What are the challenges, opportunities that they're encountering here, whether that's around access to food, about recipes, about how they create their meals, right? Many of them share stories that as they're receiving these boxes here, the children were completely excited about it. They're like, oh, look, it's a carrot. What can we do with a carrot? Right? Oh, look, what is that? That curiosity came out of these children's here and really sparked them to think more about like fresh produce. What is it? How does it smell? How does it taste? And many other providers have kind of taken away and said, we started incorporating that into our literacy. We started incorporating that into their programs where they would engage with children to say, kind of help me prep, right? These produce here, share this with their friends. Using, some of the aromas of the vegetables like dills, right? Because the sense is so strong, just use that opportunity to make the connections like, oh, this is dill. This is what it smells like. And in fact, one of the stories was about like aromatherapy, like, oh, wow, when I like get super excited or when I get a little depressed or sad here, I would go and smell the dill here to help relieve me of my anxiety here, to kind of calm me down. So food not only is about consuming, but it's about touching, it's about smelling, it's about colors, it's about numbers. And these are things that had came out of this project, working with providers. The other thing that was so great about this, that even though it was so hard across during the pandemic, connecting not with just providers, but also with the Department of Education who oversees the CACFP program, because they themselves were completely blindsided by the pandemic, where they had to really address the needs of how education is going to look like here, especially in the pandemic. But we were able to have successful meetings with them to look at the various different avenues here that really challenge providers, right? Looking at, oh, what is the CACFP program here? And when in conversation with our providers about CACFP, they're like, oh, we've heard about it, or some of them don't even know about it because they're so restricted because of the lack of resources or, technologies or availability of technology, the use of technology here as well. But for those who did know, they're like, one, we've heard about it, but it's so onerous, right? It's so time consuming. We just don't have the time to, especially when we're watching 14 children's here. And when we do that means just more administrative work that comes out of it. Second about was that, we looked through it, but, the CCFP program didn't incorporate any culture appropriate meals. So that means that every single day, every single week, we have to find an alternative so that it meets the CCFP program. And the other thing was that the program itself was too rigorous. The requirement is too rigorous here. They would do site visits, and then they would do unexpected site visits. Sometimes some story that we've heard with a past participant said, I was being docked because I didn't serve the meal at 12 o'clock, but that instead I served it at 10 o'clock because the child was hungry already. So I went and served it ahead. And therefore, these are some of the challenges that was happening. So as a result of what we've heard, we in return mention and share this with the Department of Education. We actually reached out to USDA and their Farm to Early Care programs and talked about, like, how does this work? How can we create more equitable access here for individuals that's more inclusive? First of all, second of all, so it's also reflective of the provider and where they're at. So it's not about having the provider kind of meet you where you're at, but having the system meet the provider where they're at, especially because some of the providers we have are elders, non-English speaking, they're not tech savvy. Navigating computers is definitely a challenge. And there's a lack of support, especially during COVID here. While people were scared about getting COVID, many of their workers stopped working for them as well too. But overall, what we're seeing through 2022 is that even though we have had these challenges, we're planting the seeds here. We're also seeing that this program had completely flourished from 14 providers this year to 20 providers this year, from 16 Hmong farmers to now 18 Hmong farmers. And so that this is really growing out of that here, that the need for fresh local produce here is essential. The need to minimize the work of provider has minimized because they weekly obtain a box of freshly grown produce as well too, right? And though these are just various different components of our project, I think that at the end of the day here is, like I mentioned earlier, is right now we're planting the seed. Ultimately, we are inserting tactics here. We're training Hmong farmers. We're training Hmong providers here to think about opportunities so that they will become sustainable themselves, so that we would increase their self-efficacy, so that we will build agency among the individuals, so that we empower them to address health equity, to empower them to address equity in general here, to empower them to be and have a financially viable business, whether that is in farming or whether that is in providing care for children. So I stop there. I want to give others the opportunity as well too. So thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much. And I just lost the list of speakers. So whoever's on deck, if you don't mind going next, and I will pull back that list again. Thank you. Is it Birdie? Are you next? All right. So we'll turn to Birdie, and thank you so much, Jansen.
Thank you.
And I'll just say we could spend an hour and a half hearing from each of these projects. So I'm feeling like I want to keep asking questions. And so we're going to get a little bit of time at the end. So there is some time for Q&A because there's just such a wealth of wisdom in this room right now. So anyway, without further ado, I'll turn to Birdie. And Birdie, it looks like you are muted right now.
Oh, I said bonjour. Beneshin and Disnakas, Ginushin and Dudem, Benin and Dunjaba. In my way, or Ojibwe, I am an Ojibwe woman. I am from the Leechik Band of Ojibwe, and it is proper for me to introduce myself to you in my language. I said that my name was Little Bird, that I am from the Northern Pike Clan, and I am from a little town called Bena. I am also, gee, we wear so many hats. I am also the program manager for a program on the Leech Lake Band of Ojibwe reservation called Family Spirit. And it's a home visiting program that teaches life skills to anybody who needs them. We usually work with from pregnant ladies until their child is 3 years old. But it says family in our name. So I just went ahead and reached out and said, we're going to be working with families who are raising our babies. And we're going to be working with anybody, regardless of who you are, if you're a foster parent, you're a extended family member, a grandma, grandpa, anybody raising our babies, we decided we would just work with everybody. Because not nowadays, a lot of us don't have all the skills that we need to survive living, especially in the bush, in the places that we live. And we're like in a desert where it's hard to get to hospitals or clinics or to the grocery stores or anything like that. And we are, for where we're at, we're in a food desert. We're having a little bit of issues right now with hunting and gathering because we're just like anybody else. Our hunting and gathering and our food are now being contaminated. So we are working really hard at trying to figure out how to do something called the rights of nature, giving the natural world a voice. And that didn't happen until this little family spirit program came up. And we started running into this. We start talking about, well, as people, we believe even the trees are a spirit and they have a spirit. The fish are spirits. We went back to the idea of our creation story and everything that every being that's here on this earth, we're here before human beings were here. And we had to make an agreement with those beings to help us survive because we would be the youngest and the most pitiful to touch the earth. But anyway, we started looking at things like that. With doing our life skills stuff, we are trying to teach people how to sort of, you'd have to understand living in the area that I live, you'd have to understand that some of us aren't as savvy with things in the world as other people may be. You would not believe that some of these people actually do not leave the reservation. They may go to the next town to get groceries or something like that, but they really don't go anywhere. They stay pretty close to home. And a lot of it's due to economics. We're pretty economically not very sound here. So with Family Spirit, we have 68 lessons that teaches about different things. And then I got to thinking, gosh, we should put culture into it. Let's find out about the cultures that live here. It's not just indigenous cultures. We have Black people, we have Mexican people, we have non-indigenous peoples living here. What is their culture? Let's look and see exactly what the culture of them is. What are their traditions? How do we help them be able to find their way? We have areas in our reservation that are having issues with drugs and alcohol. One town in particular is really bad. So we went in there and started trying to talk to them to see what it was. And it's all due to historical trauma. Believe it or not, everybody with their epigenetics or their genetics from time immemorial carries different DNA codes. And some of that is trauma from way, way back when, regardless of who you are. And you don't understand why you behave the way that you do. And within our people, a lot of our parents and grandparents were stolen and taken into the boarding schools. I'm one of them. And it causes a break in the family. It causes a break in the mind. And there's no such thing as post PTSD. It's not post, it's forever present for our people, because that is still happening. We're still losing our children, and it breaks the family. There's an old saying that if you break the woman, you've broken the tribe, you've broken the people. So we were trying really hard thinking about the women to keep them up and teach them what we can about the world and about the new things that are happening. Some people didn't even know what a checkbook was, or even how to write a checkbook, how to look for a job, or any of that, anything like that. So we decided to start doing that. Then COVID hit. Well, first I'm going to back up a little bit. Our dream was to put in the culture part of our program and give the culture stories, such as if you bathe a baby, what do you do with the belly button when it falls off? Well, in the old days, our people kept that and they hung it, they put it in a bag and they hung it on the, trying to think of the English word, cradle board. They put it on the cradle board and the baby played with it. The baby kept it with them all their life. That was so that they would not be lost. They wouldn't be running around saying, who am I? Where do I come from? What am I supposed to be doing? What am I worth? Things like that. They were connected to their mother and they were connected to earth. So we started thinking, well, let's start teaching them all those things and right along with our stories. And we come up with the other thing. If we could possibly figure out a way to get cultural community advocates in here that know some of these stories and know how to do some of these things, this would be awesome. And lo and behold, Chris Matter shows up and helps us and tells us about this program, Blue Cross Blue Shield health and prevention. So we said, hey, we could fit all three of the things in there because we deal with tobacco, we deal with physical, and we deal with good nutrition. Because now we can teach the people how to do the tobacco in the proper way. You have to put tobacco down and thank the being for the life that you're going to take, whether it be a dandelion root for the medicine to help you cure cancer, or for the top of the dandelion root if you're going to put it in a salad. You still have to put down tobacco and thank that being for their life to give you sustenance for your own life. And it takes a lot of physical activity to get out there sometimes and gather to go and get, maybe you're going to get fiddleheads and leeks. And it takes a lot to go out there and do that. And those are good foods. They feed your body. Your body knows exactly what to do with those things because that's where you come from. You're a part of this place. And so we said that would be so cool. We could teach people how to do that with the ASEMA. And now we've got this campaign going. ASEMA, by the way, is tobacco. We've got this campaign going where we're, anytime we get sage and we have sage seeds, we take it out and take the seeds out to wherever so we can grow sage in different areas. We've got some tobacco hidden where we're growing tobacco so people don't pick it right away and ruin it. We want it to propagate. And we've also got ways of showing them where the medicines are and what to do with these medicines, where the food is and what to do with this food, how to store it for the winter, and so forth. And that's all because of the program that Blue Cross Blue Shield is allowing us to do. And now the next thing was, we never had a building. We didn't have an office. And now we have an office. And people start finding out about us and the work that we're doing. And somebody donated from the Department of Natural Resources, started out at Leech Lake Department of Natural Resources. And now other people are stepping in and donating. And they donated us a huge greenhouse, what is called a high tunnel, where we can actually grow in the ground year round. And we just got our high tunnel last week. So it's still sitting there and it needs to be built. It's 70 feet long by 27 feet wide by 24 feet high. We've never seen such a thing and we're all excited. And I've never seen so many people come running out to help us unload this thing from a great big grain truck. And they were laughing and having fun, and we fed them a breakfast. We fed them a pancake breakfast that was made from some of the flowers and things that we found from the Amish people. Because we've also been trading with the Amish. And we have bees that help us. And the bees are used with the drug and alcohol program part of us, which is new to us since last year during COVID. And COVID has been a blessing to us because it's made us stop and take a look at what exactly are we doing and helping us try to figure out how to do it better. It helped us figure out a new way of getting to people and to making them feel supported and be able to do our lessons and not skip a beat. We've been able to handle all of that. And anyway, so our bees have taught us a lot of things. We learned for the first 2 years about the bees before we start using them with our people. We have a garden growing now. We have that's a pollinator garden, and the bees love it. So now we're hoping to see what to do with the honey this year. And somebody donated us a honey spinner. It's a hand honey spinner, but it's a start. I mean, people are finding out about our program and they're starting to come. The only challenge that we have now is we have so many people wanting to be a part of our program, and we're very short-staffed. We only have 2 home visitors and 2 cultural advocates and myself right now. Because of our COVID mandate that came down to the tribe, we would lose some of our money if we didn't mandate that people get vaccinated. So a lot of people did not want to be vaccinated and therefore lost their jobs, including some of my staff. And the reason that the people are not wanting to be vaccinated is for so many years, we have been fooled and lied to and used as guinea pigs. For instance, like if a woman went in to give birth and they told her that she was having difficulties with her birth, they would sterilize her. Or if they were just going in to be for a regular woman check, they would sterilize her. So we have issues with trust. I was one of the first people in the United States to get a vaccine because I wanted to show the people that it's okay. If I'm going to do it, it's okay. You're going to be okay. We talked to the vaccine, we did a ceremony, and we fed the spirits of that vaccine and asked them not to hurt us, but to help us and to help all people in the world when they start giving us that. But still, people are still holdouts. I think they just got to wait and see if we didn't grow green horns or something happened to us from the vaccine. So slowly people are starting to get vaccinated, but the ones that I work with still refuse to. So anyway, we lost staff. So that's one of our challenges. And the other one is our caseload. We right now have a caseload of 210 people for the 5 of us. And that takes a lot of time for us to be able to do things with them. So we're trying to do more group things. And we also started another program thanks to Blue Cross Blue Shield Prevention, and it's the fatherhood program.
And Brady, we have just about another minute, and
okay.
we want to keep hearing all of this, okay. And I'm just lamenting that the sessions are so short. So
well, and then with the fatherhood program is we're reaching out to the people that are incarcerated and bringing them in and helping them find their place in the community and with the families. So and it's, yeah, there's so much to do for all of us. I believe for all of our programs we're finding things that are a challenge. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Bertie, for your wisdom, and it sounds inspiring to hear all the different things that you're supporting, especially with such a small team. So hopefully we'll get to a couple of questions, because I'm guessing people might have some follow-up for you as well after that, hearing about that. And so now we'll turn to Jody and Nick from representing the Lincoln Park Children and Families Collaborative. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nick Ellen. I'm the Health Power Program Manager for Lincoln Park Children and Families Collaborative. I'm going to try and go quick so that I can get all of the stuff I have in here. So I'm sorry if I talk too fast, but I'll talk a little bit and then I think Jody will fill in the blanks. So in the first year of our project, we conducted a community survey. LPCFC hired people who might not have traditionally been hired, people who didn't have like the right education or they don't speak green English, etc. But having those actual community members involved at every step has really added to the richness of our team, and I think added to our success. Even with this shutdown, we were able to survey 172 people. So people talked about strengths and positives in the survey results, including the beauty of Lincoln Park and the relative safety of the community, with people who come from bigger, scarier cities than Duluth. So Lincoln Park feels very safe if you've been living in a difficult urban area. But And there are good places to exercise, things like that. But overwhelmingly, the negative issue that people mentioned is food access. Some other folks have talked about it being a food desert. Lincoln Park is no different. There's no grocery store and there's unreliable public transit. Hauling groceries on the bus isn't easy, etc. And all we have are like gas stations, fast food, and some super expensive gentrified restaurants where you can buy like a $20 sandwich. So not helpful for the most of the population in our area. There were some other issues mentioned in the survey data like lack of streetlights, drug use, no sober space, cigarette butts in the street, things like that. But mostly 68% of people said food access is the top problem. So then we spent some time recruiting and training community members to advocate for change. So training was initially going to be in person. We all get to hang out for a few days and do some training together, but COVID is a thing. So we moved to Zoom and we trained 18 local residents, students and staff, including some of the original canvassers. And our trainings were around things like systems oppression, what the social determinants of health are, how they're impacting our neighborhood, legislative and grassroots organizing, etc. I like to say that we revealed power to them. So rather than empowering people, we just kind of shine a light on power that they already have. Our first project as a team was to give out home garden kits. So about 100 families received a set of microgreens and herbs with instructions to grow indoors. So that can show you like you can grow food anywhere, even if you don't have a yard, as most of the residents of Lincoln Park do not. Then we moved on to a larger scale project. We've been doing grocery giveaways since October 2021. And we use this phrase grocery giveaway instead of food shelf with intention. And we give away 13,000 to 14,000 pounds of food every month, as well as hygiene items, menstrual products, soap, sanitizer, body wipes, etc. And we know people cannot stay healthy if they can't stay clean. So last month, someone thanked us in particular for body wipes. She said that their water has been shut off for some time. Like we never want to hear that their water's been shut off. It's kind of hard to just imagine that you're living in a fairly major metro area and you don't have access to water, but at least we were able to supplant that with something to help them stay clean in their household. We have given out almost 100,000 pounds of food now, and in May we served about 250 people. So we're averaging between like 170 and 200 some people every month. And unfortunately, as inflation increases, so does the need for this program. So we're working with some partner orgs to get a longer term solution, like a grocery store, even like a community owned grocery store, maybe a market grocery store, but we're kind of still in progress. We're working on that. If we manage to succeed, it will be the first grocery store in our neighborhood in 27 years. So in addition to food access programming, we've been hosting community walk and talks, which is a safe place to get a little exercise, walk the neighborhood with some company and learn a little bit about what's going on at our project, and unwind your mind sessions, which are a chance for people to vent. It's a pretty stressful time in the world right now, but so we have some venting time as well as teaching skills to cope with things like stress, depression, burnout, etc. We're also involved in community gardens, and of course, we're working on these things at a policy level. So we're working with Bridging Health Duluth, Essentia Rural Health, the Resourceful Project, the MSFG, Minnesotans for a Smoke-Free Generation, trying to cause some policy change. And as in all of those projects, we push forward health equity, access, and bring the people who are most impacted to the table as often as we can. They don't need to hear from me, they need to hear from the people who are actually impacted by these things. People in Lincoln Park die 8 to 12 years younger than the rest of Duluth. We have higher rates of deaths of despair, so suicide, overdose, domestic violence, etc. And getting to the why of that shorter lifespan is a big priority for our project. So we're doing some data collection supported by BCBS to try and get some answers about that, like what's going on that just your zip code means that you die much younger. And then I just have a little bit about our primary challenges, and then I'll pass it off to Jody. The primary challenge has been engagement over Zoom. These boxes do not, it's nice, like it helps us to communicate it all, but it's just not organic. You cannot build relationships on the same level. We've been able to meet in person more recently, and that's been wonderful. Also, internet connections are not all equal, and we've seen some major burnout among our participants. We've also had to make some adjustments because people who are in poverty are also in crisis. So meeting people where they are as often as we can, trying to be supportive, not just writing someone off because they don't show up. Like maybe they don't show up because they can't. So meeting people where they are has been really useful. But overall, the group has been really helpful for systems change, feeding folks and balancing out some of the isolation that everybody has been coping with as we figure out this COVID thing. And I will let Jody fill in anything that I missed.
Well, there was only one thing. It was one of my favorite things that we did with this project, and it was before Nick came on to help us manage this project. But in 2020, when we thought that we weren't going to do much or couldn't really get much happening, we did plant a orchard in Harrison Park, and we have 12 fruit trees there that we help care for. And that's just the only piece of our project I thought was that I would just still like to share, because it's pretty exciting when you plant an orchard, even a small orchard, because those trees are going to be here 50 plus years, bearing fruit for the community. So otherwise, I think Nick covered everything, and yeah, we can pass it on to the next group now.
Thank you so much, Nick and Jody, for sharing. And we will then pass it on to Bethlehem to take to share about North Point Wellness, Health and Wellness.
Should I just start? Okay.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. And I'll move to the next slide. Thanks.
Sounds good. Hey everyone, my name is Bethlehem Yahalawork, and I work as a program manager in the Health Policy and Advocacy Department at North Point Health and Wellness Center. Our project goal is to reduce commercial tobacco use among residents of Minneapolis and Hennepin County suburbs, with a focus on serving African American youth and young adults who are disproportionately targeted by commercial tobacco advertising and are more likely to suffer from tobacco-related death and disease. Our project focuses on point of sale policy, which includes regulating how tobacco prices are discounted in Minneapolis and the surrounding suburbs, as well as prohibiting the sale of all flavored tobacco products, including menthol. Because our project relies on in-person engagement and education with elected officials and community members, we had to shift strategies during the beginning of the pandemic, like most of the projects talked about today. But we remained focused on our policy goals. And we're also staying conscious of other priorities of our community and partners brought on by the pandemic and the uprisings in Minneapolis. So during year 2 of this project, we continue to experience challenges with working on policy change in Minneapolis because the council had other policy priorities and tobacco control definitely was not on top of their list. We were also experiencing some challenges with outreach to youth in schools due to the virtual learning and just the existing challenges that teachers and schools were facing with school attendance and keeping kids actively engaged and participating in Zoom classes. So keeping youth involved and engaged in our work was very difficult to do through Zoom and other virtual activities, such as our Minnesotans for a Smoke-Free Generation Week of Action. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. And pre-COVID, we would do trainings with youth and kind of get them ramped up to go to the Capitol for our Tobacco Day on the Hill. And it was like a really fun activity. The youth they got to practice their advocacy skills and meet with legislators in person. And it was just an all day fun activity that a lot of our youth look forward to. But because of COVID, a lot of that, the whole thing shifted to virtual And so it was really hard to find youth that were like willing to be engaged with a full week of action for that program. So I think that was one of the biggest things. And youth to us, like they're a really big part of our work. So that was one of the challenges that we were facing due to the pandemic. And although we were experiencing these challenges, we were still working with community partners in our organization and shifting our outreach and messaging to meet the needs of our community at the time. So an example of this is our work to connect tobacco to COVID through creating educational handouts that we would then give to participants at the North Point food shelf, our outdoor markets, and the COVID-19 vaccine clinic that we had on site. It was important for us to just let the community know that we're still here, we're still working on these policies, but we are also aware of the existing challenges that the community was facing during the time. We also continue to have strong engagement from our coalition partners. We relaunched our Menthol Coalition, which was great because we were able to reconnect with our community partners. And we also made them aware of the fact that we're still here and we're still working on these flavored tobacco restrictions. There was also some organizational capacity building in year 2. Other departments and programs at North Point, like the clinic, learned more about our anti-commercial tobacco work. So now there are more conversations happening about how other programs can collaborate and weave the commercial tobacco policy work into other curricula and education that they provide for groups like moms or seniors. And we are also getting requests from community partners for educational resources and presentations because they wanted to continue to support our work. Although we were facing challenges with policy change in Minneapolis, we remained engaged in supporting other local and statewide policy work that our coalition partners were engaged in. So we contributed to passing 7 commercial tobacco prevention policies in the cities of Roseville, Lauderdale, Dilworth, Shoreview, Columbia Heights, and Bloomington. And we also held virtual trainings and other educational presentations and continued our advocacy work through testifying before policymakers at the state and local level and meeting with elected officials and staff and submitting letters of support as well. So despite all of the challenges that came our way, I was happy to have had the opportunity to kind of pivot our work, shift it a little bit to focus on addressing the immediate needs in the community, primarily to food and other essential supplies and supporting our programming at North Point, as well as continuing our policy work through supporting our coalition partners and just keeping those strong connections with them. And that is all that I have to share.
Thank you so much for sharing about your work. We will pass to Ash and go from there if we've got time.
Thank you all. My name is Ash Narayanan. I am the executive director of an organization called Our Streets Minneapolis, based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. And we work, our mission is to make the city of Minneapolis a better place for folks who don't drive, people who bike, walk, and take public transit. And we do this work because we know, transportation has been used for a long time as a way to kind of perpetuate a lot of the discrimination and harm that we see through the various systems that kind of perpetuate in our society. Just a little bit of background about our organization. We started back in 2009 as the Minneapolis Bike Coalition. And today we are Our Streets Minneapolis, and our primary motivation is justice in transportation. Our project is called County Streets for People, and it is a project that is focused on changing the nature of streets that are disproportionately bad and put cars over people on almost all of them. And so transportation just has such a huge impact on many different aspects of our life, and there's huge racial disparities that kind of show up in how we make our transportation decisions as well. And the biggest and most widely felt of these inequities is the epidemic of traffic crashes that we see on our streets. Like almost every single one of us knows someone who was killed or injured or affected by a car crash. And we see huge racial disparities in those again. You know, our Native community members are most at risk for a crash in the city of Minneapolis, followed by Black and African American members who are 3 times more likely to be hurt or killed by a car than white people. And we also see, you know, how our cities and streets are laid out being one of the primary reasons for making the climate crisis worse. Today, driving is the single biggest reason that carbon pollution is getting worse. And this is because we've designed our transportation systems to encourage as much driving as possible. And because of where streets are located, communities of color breathe worse air. And those who contribute the least to carbon emissions are likely to have to deal with its worst impacts as well. And another hugely consequential layer of all this is the reality of policing on our streets. Policing has caused and continues to cause great harm, and often our transportation system is the first place where people start to meet the criminal justice system, whether it's because you're pulled over while driving, or if you have a broken taillight, or you just don't have a ticket on your bus or train. And this can have deeply bad consequences for people, including being arrested, losing your home, losing job opportunities. And so our organization advocates for removing policing entirely from transportation and achieving safety through a variety of other community-centered means. And so our project was really focused on building a community-led movement to help people understand how the transportation system affects so many other parts of their lives, and 2, what we can do about it. So we really focused on a grassroots, multi-dimensional strategy, which was based on meeting people where they were at. So that means we invested most of our energy into door knocking, grassroots organizing, and social media and phone banking. Just in 2021 alone, we've knocked over 6,800 doors, and this was just since July of last year. And our guiding principle is really remaining accountable to the people of our communities. And so we really focus on moving away from just meeting with elected officials or talking to decision makers and kind of making everything public. That means when we have a policy priority, we make that public, and then we build community support through grassroots door knocking and other means to kind of pressure elected officials to do the right thing. It also kind of strives to interrupt those insider games that we've seen a lot, which continue to perpetuate, the status quo that often favors mostly wealthy white people. And we also have a tool that we call accountability forums. And these are forums where we invite community members and decision makers to participate, and we make public demands of elected officials to change our transportation system. And so one other thing that we really try to do is draw a very clear line between what is likely to happen with a specific transportation policy, whether it's asking for narrower streets, slowing down cars, reducing asthma, and how it will actually make your life better. And that really helps people understand, how this can, have a tangible impact on their life. And so we've also focused on creating. Sometimes it's hard to understand. Transportation decisions are like murky. It can be counterintuitive, and they can be a little bit. People are not thinking about it a lot of the time. And so one of the things we've been doing is trying to create positive visions for the future. And so I just want to share a couple of slides that show what those positive vision can be. One is a project that we've launched called Bring Back Sixth. So this is a project in North Minneapolis around Olson Memorial Freeway. Olson Memorial Freeway was a freeway that was intentionally routed through a Black and Jewish community in North Minneapolis. It was the heart of the Black jazz community, tons of local businesses. It was a really strong, powerful, vibrant community that was just wiped out when this freeway came through. And so our campaign is called Bring Back 6th, which is a positive vision to kind of restore the old 6th Avenue North that was in its place in the neighborhoods that were surrounding it. So just wanted to show you a couple of slides here that so this is what the street looks like today, and we're asking for immediate improvements to be made just to make it much more easier for people to cross. It's a very low income neighborhood, and we need things that allow people to cross and access the goods and destinations in their community in an easier way. And then here's another example of what that might look like. And then another project we're doing is called the Twin Cities Boulevard. This is by far our most ambitious project. This is I-94 between the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. It's due to be reconstructed. And again, this, when it was created, destroyed hundreds of homes, thousands of homes, I would say, between the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, and continues to exert a lot of harm today. A few things, one is that asthma on this corridor is 3 times the state average and twice the county averages. We see some of the lowest incomes along the corridor, about half of the Hennepin County average on rethinking I-94. And the folks who are harmed by this the most are more likely not to own a car, and so they can't even use this facility that is causing so much harm to them. And so we are putting forward a positive vision that we're calling the Twin Cities Boulevard, and we're basing this off of things that have happened in other cities. This is what it looks like today. We're asking for the trench to be filled in, and we're asking for housing and parks and rapid transit to be created along the stretch of the corridor, and asking that we prioritize the people who live along the corridor instead of allowing suburban people to move in and out of our city as quickly as possible. We've had some pretty great successes on this, and the Minnesota Department of Transportation just confirmed to us that this will be one of the alternatives that will be seriously studied by the DOT in the coming months. So with that, I will stop my share and then turn it back over to you, Emily, for if we have time for questions still.
Thank you so much. It has been really inspiring to hear about all these different projects and ways that these different representatives and projects are promoting equity in such different and impactful ways. So I know we are getting really close to the end of the session, and we want to make sure that if people have questions that you can start asking them now, and we'll get to as many as we can before we close. And I can keep the Zoom room open a couple minutes later if people have more questions than we have time for. So without further ado, I haven't seen questions specific come in, but this is your time if you want to unmute and ask to any of the projects or all of the projects, something specific for one or the full group of projects. So I'll pause and see if anyone has anything they want to ask. And I will also just add to the chat, because I know that we really, as I said before, we only had a moment really to hear about each of these projects, and they all have so much more depth than we even got to scratch the surface on today. So I have just kind of reposted the link to the different projects and the bios for the presenters who share, the panelists who share today, in case you want to learn more about their organizations, their work. You can find that information on this conference brochure. So I'll check back in to see if there are any questions. Lisa, are you seeing anything come up in the chat? Or if anyone, again, has something they want to unmute and share and ask about, we would welcome that as well.
Hi, I have a question about the highway corridors and filling that in, making those our land bridges. What does it look like for the timeline for those to actually possibly happen?
Yeah, so just to clarify, this is not a land bridge project. We actually don't think a land bridge is a good way to move forward because it keeps the highway in place. This is a project that actually restores and heals all of the community by filling in the trench and connecting the communities that were destroyed and building, making it a surface level boulevard. So it will become much more like a surface level street. We are asking for the state to start construction on this by 2027. And we think it could be, 3 to 5 years after that when the full project would be constructed.
Thank you for answering that question. And thank all of you guys for being here and presenting today. Really appreciated everything you guys had to say.
I just wanted to say that Shar, said, I like that while there is a similar end goal for all of these, they are all focusing on a different barrier: food, transportation, and tobacco use. What are the connections to the middle school, to Lincoln Park? What are your connections to the middle school and any connections with restorative practices at school?
I can try and answer that just briefly, that we, especially in our tobacco, like anti-tobacco work, we work with the community officers at the schools. So hopefully engage youth that way. And one of the things that I would say is under the umbrella of restorative justice is that right now, if you're caught with vape, you have punitive actions, which we all know is usually falls more on the shoulders of Black and brown students than anybody else. So we hope to change that policy. So we're working with the schools, especially with the school district, to try and change that. It'll probably take a year or so, but that's the way that we're connected at this point, that I can say in short.
Thank you so much. I see my colleague Emily has, and I just want to say from Rochelle Penderson, she just says, thank you for sharing your work. Very inspiring at a time when it can be hard to see a vision or envision. I see my colleague has added into the chat the links for our closing section. Emily and I will sit on a little bit in case others have questions or anything, or would like to share anything. Please feel free. You can put it in the chat or you can unmute, because we love hearing your voices as well. It's so much more impersonable.
And a really big thank you to the panel. It really has been an honor to work with all of you and hear about your stories and the work that you all have been doing in your respective sectors and corners of this work, which is all just so important. And so thank you so much for being here. And it looks like we've got, Jean shared that Jean works at Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe and love hearing Berdina's work about what they are doing, love the greenhouse ideal and teaching others to be like their elders. So that was a call out to Birdie and her team.
I'm really thankful that we were able to get picked by Blue Cross Blue Shield Prevention. They've enabled us to do lots of things. These people I love working with them because they're so easy and they're so flexible and they're so enthusiastic about what you do. I don't know about the rest of you, but boy, I love their enthusiasm and their ability to switch on a dime with us when things are happening and happening fast. And they're so supportive and I'm really happy about that. The last thing I need to say is I'm gonna have to leave. I've got some issues that I've got to go take care of at the office right away. We're closing early tomorrow and we're gonna be closed on Monday for Juneteenth. So I've got so much to do. We're doing a welcome baby celebration on Wednesday. And that's welcoming all our brand new babies to our tribe and thanking all the mothers for being that sacred avenue that allowed them to get here. So, and this year we're thanking our dads for being the fire keepers. In our culture, the men, whenever there's a ceremony, we build a fire, the men take care of that. Well, they also take care of the fire within their woman and within their children, which is like a protection. So with that, no questions. I've got to go. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Well, have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. Take care.
Bye. Thanks. It was great.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah. It was
I put in the links for the closing this afternoon. So it's about 10 more minutes. So
Thanks,
again,
Anna.
yeah, got any questions, anything you'd like to add, or what are you taking away from this section that we just did? We still got a couple of more minutes.
Lisa,
Are we
I'm gonna
gonna
pop
let them
over the
out a
next
little
one.
early? Go ahead.
I'm gonna pop over to the next one. So thank you for kind of doing wrap up.
Oh,
Appreciate
yeah,
it.
yeah, no problem. So yeah, if you the other session will be starting in about 10 more minutes. If you want to just share what you took away from this particular section, will be great. Other than that, if you want an extra little 10 minutes in between time, you might want to use the restroom, or I want to freshen my water. So anything like that will be fine as well.
Well, I'd like to say that I think it was a really great opportunity to listen to everybody get up. I enjoyed listening to the gentleman who is the farmer. And he, I liked how he said his, I don't know what it was, but it was explaining. So he used his language, his native language, and then he translated it. Earlier today, the other lady was speaking Ojibwe and she translated. And I thought that was really beautiful. So when he did that, I felt connected to him, because today twice I got to hear a different language and then the translation. So I thought that was beautiful.
Thank you so much for sharing. Anyone else? Well, again, thank you so much. And we'll see you on the other side. Again, I'll put the link in and we'll see you in a couple of minutes. Thank you.